So from previous classes, we have seen that what are the inbound, outbound variables and outbound properties, and how to set a variable, and how to read the flow variables and session variables. And in this class, we will see that what is exactly a mule message structure, and what are the different kinds of flows we can design inside our mule flow, like subflows, asynchronous and synchronous flows. So how to design that? So let me give a quick recap. What exactly mule message? We already discussed how the structure it is, but again, I will just show you how it is. So the mule message is the object used to pass any data through mule. It enables universal access to any type of message format, and it encapsulates properties and attachments associated with the current event. So this is the mule message structure. So basically, when you pass some message, it will be like this: a payload and encapsulate properties, and then attachments. Attachments are optional, but every time you will see the payload and properties. So in any point studio, we have seen that how the payload is coming, and how the different kind of properties are attached, like query parameters or URI parameters, how it is loading. And a mule message consists of three parts basically, as I said. So it's a header which contains sets of named properties partitioned into scopes. So there are different types of scopes are there. So I will explain that scopes. I mean, scopes means like inside the mule flow, how the property scopes are there, like inbound properties and outbound properties. What is the scope of these properties? So we will see that in your today class. And the payload, which consists of business specific data, the data which we are sending from different systems, like in Postman when we are posting some data as a body, so that is called a payload. So in some other real time scenarios, we may get it.
And I means for the payload is depending on the sizes of data.
No, it's not the size of data, the actual data which we receive from other systems.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yesterday we passed some XML data through Postman, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that is called the payload.
Okay.
And an optional attachments. So let when we are reading some message from emails, we will get some attachments, right? So the body part will come as sorry, payload, and attachments will come under attachments. So this is an option. So only some scenarios we will use that. So this is the structure which basically mule contains. Let's jump into the property scopes and variables, how it is. So as we have seen that there are different types of properties, like mule inbound properties, outbound properties, and invocation, session, and different variables of flow and session variables. So mule inbound properties, it cannot be set by you. Okay, means you cannot edit those properties like HTTP method, HTTP status, or whatever we have seen. So those kind of properties are mutable. We cannot change it. And a message source, such as inbound endpoint, set them for you when they receive a message. Inbound properties are lost when crossing a transport barrier. So this I will show you through pictorial and flow wise when we run the flow. I have one sample and I will walk through you that how the mule properties will lost when crossing the transport barrier. So what is meant by transport barrier here? Inside the flow, if you are using some JMS component or web service component or any web service call, and some other connector, so when you receive the inbound properties initial, that properties cannot cross that connector. So once it cross that connector, you will lose the inbound properties which you already received. So that is called the transport barrier. And mule outbound properties. Outbound properties can be set by you. So we already seen this. We have taken one property and there we set the one outbound property. We have seen that how to set up a property, outbound property. So this we can set it, but inbound properties you cannot set it. So it comes basically with the message itself. And when crossing transport barrier, how it behaves. So the outbound properties are automatically turned into inbound properties. Okay, and no longer exist as outbound properties. So outbound properties when it crosses to that transport, some HTTP connector or any JMS connector endpoints, then automatically that outbound property is converted into the inbound properties, and it will not be available in the outbound properties. Okay, and a mule invocation properties, basically this is deprecated, and we mainly use inbound outbound properties and session properties. But let's see what is exactly mule invocation properties. Invocation properties can be set by you. It's like a flow variable, how it behaves same. Invocation properties are lost when crossing a transport barrier. Okay, and coming to the mule session properties. Session properties can be set by you, and session properties are preserved when crossing a transport barriers. So you will not lose these properties. Let's say inside the flow, whenever the message receives, you want to store it and you want to use it to in some other flow to call a web service. So in that case, you cannot keep it into the flow variable because it cannot persist the data. So you need to use the session variable to store the data, and again you can use some other variable to get that same data. And mule flow variables, they behave like instance properties. And then mule session variables, they behave like session properties. So let me give you an example how exactly this property scopes and variable how it behaves. I will try to share the code later, but first we will see that how exactly it will behave. I already designed this, and I will just give you walkthrough. So I have one HTTP listener which listens my messages, and then I just kept a logger which just I want to see one inbound property for the message. So I'm just displaying the HTTP inbound property HTTP method. Whatever the method I'm getting as an inbound property, I'm seeing that. So and then I'm using one transport like a connector, a VM connector. This you can just search here. You can see the VM. Okay, just drag and drop here, and the properties which you need to set, just make it as a request response, because we are writing some message to this queue. It behaves like a queue. So in but it's a virtual message queue, virtual queue. Okay. So you are writing some we are writing some message into this VM queue, and we want to read the same message whatever we posted into the second flow. This is called the another flow. From here we are reading, and if you see the
Can you
path,
scroll up? Can you scroll up once?
yes.
Like for VM, how can we know that like we should have to use the VM only or there like particularly?
No, for this example,
How can we justify?
that's what for this example I have taken this VM endpoint. Basically, what I want to tell you here in this place, it will be some web service call or database call, some Salesforce connector you might be using in real time. Okay, since we don't have that here to show that, so I just use this VM connector So this behaves like a virtual message to store some message in memory queue. Okay, so by using this, we can see that how the properties are behaving when it comes to one flow to another flow. So basically, my message comes like this. First, it receives on HTTP connector, and then logger, and then VM connector. Again, it will go to the second flow. The cursor will go like this. Okay. In the second flow, again, I'm reading the message
But there is
whatever
no
I receive.
intersection with that, like, but there is no intersection, like,
It is there. It is there. That is what I'm saying. So if you see this name, VMQ name, what is the name here? Inbound, the queue path. And
yeah, it's an inbound.
what we said? Request response, right?
Yes, request responses.
And if you come down and see the second VM inbound queue, what is the path again? It's inbound. It should be inbound. Then only it comes like that.
Oh, okay, 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 got it now.
Okay, we are using the same name, same queue. We are posting on the message to the queue, and again we are reading from the same queue. That's what we made it as a request response. Okay,
Yeah,
so here in this first scenario, I'm using the inbound properties. How the inbound properties will behave when it crosses a transport like any HTTP connector, web service connector, or any connector. This is also one connector, right? We have taken it from the connector only, right? So these are the connectors you can see. So from there we have taken the VM connector, right? So this is the connector we have taken. So if any connector if you are using, whether this inbound properties will persist or will it disappear? That is what I want to show you. Okay. So let me run and show you quickly how this will behave. So these kind of things we must understand because when it comes to the real time, you may need to set a lot of properties and you may reutilize in some other different flows. So that time you will get stuck because you will set some property in one flow and you will try to see the same property in another flow, but you will not able to see. So that time you must have some idea what type of property I need to set to see in the second flow. If I set flow variable,
like we have to know like how we are giving the connections, like for the inbound connections.
uh,
We have to remember that.
correct.
I got it. What you're saying.
So the flow which I am trying to test it is inbound thing, but didn't run in debug mode. Let me run it in. Okay, let me hit the inbound with that path. I'm sending something here, the get method. So now I'm here and just go to the mule debugger. Okay, and see the inbound property. These are the inbound properties which automatically sets. And what we said, inbound properties can't be changed. Okay, you cannot change from HTTP method get to post or HTTP listener path inbound to something. So these are fixed. You cannot change it. Inbound properties, not only here in any flow. Okay. So these are the inbound
Yeah.
properties, and I have taken one property. So that is called the HTTP method. So I want to see that HTTP method value it is a get. So whether this property is going when I'm going into the second flow, whether this inbound properties are existing or not. That is what I want to see. Okay. So now let's move next. I am at a VM inbound scope, and if you see that it automatically jumps here and coming into the second flow because there is a interconnection between these two because we are using the same queue, right?
Yes, we are using the same thing.
Yeah. So since we are using the same queue, you are coming into the second flow. Otherwise, it will not. So how directly it is identifying without any HTTP connector because this is the queue. Whoever subscribing on this queue, so it will automatically receive the message. Not only VMQ, it's ActiveMQ, JM, any other IBM MQ. You when you make it as a receiver, I mean first component in the flow. If it is a first component, then it will behave like a receiving the message from the queue. So whenever the message placed in that queue, it automatically activates. Okay, it automatically activates. You don't need to push it from some other places. It just automatically activate whenever the message receives on that queue. Since we place something on this queue, so it activated, and then we can see this here. And if you see the inbound properties, are we seeing the same inbound properties here? All the inbound properties which we saw initially are disappeared, right? And if you see the console, I can see the logger and the method also. It is a get method initially, but here I think I'm not displaying, but still you can directly see in the mule debugger it is enough. So what we understand here, the inbound properties cannot cross the transport barrier. That is what we need to understand. Okay.
Yeah.
And
The
coming
VM inbound we given the same values so that it can directly jump to the second one, right?
correct one flow to another flow, it's not
Another flow, yeah. But it's
apply.
not in the same field, but it's another field, but it's giving the same value, so
Yeah,
having a chance to jump. Okay.
yeah. See, if I delete this flow, still you can actively receive the message on this queue because it is the source message for this flow, right? And it's a queue. So any queue, if you configure like this, whenever the message placed on that queue, it automatically activate. If the flow is running state, then it always keeps checks on your queue whether is there any message placed on that queue or not. So once the message placed, automatically it activates. And let's coming to the second flow. So we want to see that how the outbound properties will behave. So yesterday we have seen that how to set a property. We use the property, right? So this is the one we used. So to set a property, either you can use this property or message property also you can use. You can type message property. So this is the one. So the difference is when you are using the property, you can set only one type of property that is called the outbound property. But when you are using this message properties component, you can set different types of properties. Like if you come down here and you can have a choice here. The property which you are setting, is it a invocation property, outbound property or session property? So that is the just choice. So as you're like you can use it any component, no issue in that. Either you can use property directly or you can use this message property. Both will behave same only. Okay. And here I am setting one property, outbound property, and I am setting some value here. So the key and value, this is the outbound property name and the value is this one. I'm just setting this one, and I want to see that whether this value will exist when it comes to the second flow, another this flow, and these two flows are configured as the path outbound. So this is the outbound path, and if you see the next flow, this is also same like outbound. So whenever I write something on this outbound queue, my outbound queue, inbound queue, it automatically activates actually. So let me place some message on my outbound queue. And let's come to the Anypoint Studio and see that how the outbound property setting. So I can see my outbound property which I set. Okay, and then let's cross the transport and see whether that outbound property will be alive or will it disappear. It's gone, right? So outbound property also gone, but where the behavior is outbound properties will automatically converted into the inbound properties. So we must able to see that in inbound properties. Okay, if you see here, it automatically converted into the inbound property. So whatever the outbound properties which you set inside your flows, when it crosses to a transport, it automatically converts into an inbound property. Okay, this is what you need to understand. And inbound properties cannot be changed, but outbound properties you can still edit. Got it? Now I will show that how the invocation properties will behave. So here invocation properties or flow variables will behave like the same way. So again I'm using the set invocation. This is also message property, the same component which we used previous, and the value I'm setting like this, but I'm selecting this scope as invocation instead of outbound property. Okay, this, let's see how it will behave. So it should be in variable now, not in outbound property, because this is an invocation property. As I said, it will be like a flow variable. So you can see that in a variable. So let's see whether it will be alive or not when it crosses this transport. So this property also will disappear and you cannot see in anywhere. So this is like that. So if you want to set this invocation properties or flow variables, you must be able to use in the single flow only. You can use in another flow, but it should not be cross the some transport. Okay, those are the invocation properties, and we have seen that how it behaves when it crosses to the transport barriers. Let's see how the session variables behave when you're asking something.
Isn't session variables?
Now I will show you that how the session variables will behave when it crosses the any transport.
Okay.
Okay, so if you see that this is also I use the same message property. There I am setting the scope as session. You can still directly use the session component. You can use this session variable and you can add the same value. No issue. Okay. and I'm setting
Yeah.
value
Yeah. Okay.
using. Let me try to test it and see. So I should be able to see inside the session. Since it is a session variable, it should come under session. So my session variable got created. Now what I am trying to see, when it crosses some transport, how the session variable will behave, whether it will be persist or it will be disappear. See, even it crossing some transport, the session variables are still alive. So you can still utilize in your second flow or any other flow.
Can you please scroll up? Can you please scroll up once?
Yes.
Yeah. We check the session, right? Like, what is the main purpose of this arrow? Like when you are clicking the arrow here for the session we are checking, no?
This one.
The
Yes.
bottom, like, yeah, from x plus y equal to question mark here. Yeah. No, 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 no. For the mule bugger, when you're clicking on that here, just we are checking the session, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and whatever, isn't like recorded, or for record is there, no? For the session and record, what are the use of that, like for record?
Oh, these are the things you are talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, session variables like let's say if you're from the input XML, you want to read somewhere property value, right? Let's say some country you want to store it in some variable. So if you store it in some normal variable, flow variable, you can utilize that in your flow. But when it crosses some transport barrier, again you want to utilize the read that the same variable whatever you stored, that country value, that value will not be available. It will be disappear. So in such cases, you must store that as a session variable. Then you can reuse in anywhere inside the second flow, like how it crossed in it. So now I can read the same value here. If I want to use the same session variable, I can reuse that. I can route like based on the location. I can route it to different countries. So such type of validations, if I want to perform, I can easily perform. And coming to the record variables, when it comes to the databases reading, we will get a bunch of records, right? So when we do that batch jobs or batch splits, we read that records and we will keep that as a record variable. So there we will use that.
Okay.
Okay. So the basic understanding, you want to understand how the variable we need to set and how to set a session variable and how that variables will behave when it crosses some transport, some connector, you can say. So that is what my intention to tell you.
Yeah, I understand why, because I'm asking, like, today I saw just for one interview on YouTube, like, recording on this MuleSoft. One
Mm-hmm.
of the client, they're asking for what is the main purpose of using the session.
Hmm.
So here the person who is giving the answer, he is not at all giving a proper reason for that session.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the reason I'm asking you.
Yeah, you can still say like this. Yeah, session variables are you can use, it can cross the transport barrier and we can use throughout our session. And if you are using flow variables, it cannot cross any transport barrier and also it cannot be allowable throughout the session. So you can differentiate like that.
Okay.
Okay, so we have seen that all the things, and by explaining this, I'm also showing that how you can have multiple flows inside a single XML, right? So when we are creating real-time projects, so it will be like that. So you can have multiple flows based on different operations. So let's say some accounts flow, some order flow, some contacts flow, something like that. You will design different kind of flows inside that, and for each get one flow and post one flow. So such kind of flows you will design in real time. Okay, and
And also for the work like in the real time, isn't to be tougher. It's like somewhat better compared to other jobs.
it's easy only if you understand how to design the flows and how to capture the values from the input XML and how to do the transformation. So these kind of things, if you understand, anywhere we do the same thing, same job, right? The first thing when you start integration, what you want to understand, what is my input, from where I need to get the input, what type of input I will be receiving. Is it an XML format?
Yeah.
Is it JSON format? So first thing you need to identify all these requirements. So when your client say that, yeah, we are having some FTP server, there we will get some sort of XML files, and the XML format is like this. So you will get this XML format. So you need to take this XML format and you need to send it to the our partner. So that is what if they are saying. So first you need to ask that. So where is that FTP location and what are the configuration of that FTP location, and what is the schema structure or XML structure which I am going to receive, and when they are saying that sending to their partner, so what is your partner expecting? Is are they expecting an XML format, or are they expecting a JSON format? So if they are expecting a JSON format, give me the structure of their JSON format. So now you have your source system connectivity details and destination system connectivity details. Now you have to do the integration between these two, right? So to do this integration, the requirements are like this. What are the configurations? What type of message you are receiving? So once you have all these details, let's start do the integration and do the design. And what are the mappings between this XML to the JSON format? Which field goes to which field? From source field to the destination field. Like that mappings you need to perform. And if they want to see any manipulations while doing this, like some any lookups for country, they want to read some endpoints and which are placed in the some database. So you just hit a database component and get the endpoint and hit the destination. Okay, the real-time integration scenarios are like this.
And okay, depending upon their like variations, yeah, we have to design.
Correct. So the first question, whenever you start integration, you start getting the requirements. What is my source? What is my destination? What are the different formats which I am going to receive, and what type of format I need to send it to the destination. This is the first basic understanding when you start an integration. When you have all these details,
Okay.
then only you can start the integration. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Now let me jump into another session.
If you don't mind, like only I'm the person in this class, so can we start tomorrow? Like because they will come tomorrow for this session. There's no spoke with those guys. Like
So
there is no session tomorrow, so those guys will come tomorrow for this session.
are you sure they will come tomorrow?
Yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, they will come.
Okay, fine, no issue.
Yeah,
So you
and
can ask
if you don't mind, like, can
doubt.
you can you please share these videos? Why? Because I didn't receive any video. Just I only received only material. You
Yeah,
send
have you
only the material.
practiced
You
that?
already said on the weekend, right? Yeah, yeah. I just I go through that today. Just I see the video. I mean, like I see the no the document, but I'm not try. I'll try tomorrow, and if I have any queries on that, like I'll ask you.
Okay,
So why? Because if I go on doing the practice, I'll get a lot of things,
fine.
having a lot of doubts. So I can easily grasp what you're saying.
Sure, sure. I will be sharing, but I'm not getting time to share actually. And I already converted it. I'll show you. Let me